So I'm not Liz. She's actually down there. She delegated the presentation to part of her research team. I'm Daisy. Thank you so much for including us in this presentation. Is this the clicker? Okay. So what I'm going to share today is some of the, perhaps a little different from my colleagues have presented so far, which is a study that's really focusing on participant experience as a follow-up of a experience sampling or ecological momentary assessment study. So the substantive part of the study is focusing on technostress, which is the stress process elicited by the use of technology, the very use of technology. So what we have done is we looked at the literature. This is a stress that's typically associated with work-related technology use, particularly when it comes to information and communication technology. And what we have found, or what research has found, is that older workers are particularly vulnerable to this type of stress because of the changes in their cognitive processing, physical sort of capacity, as well as being a digital, not being a digital native or being a digital immigrant. So separately, there's the other area of literature that's focusing on the trackers or the wearable trackers. And in our primary study, the trackers are really used more as a data collection device. We wanted to gather heart rate and heart rate variability data as physiological indicators for our stress measure. So this is perhaps, just kind of a quick recap. Looking at across the literature, the earlier studies on technostress and wearable trackers are oftentimes using the more traditional methodology in terms of cross-sectional surveys, reliant on individual self-report over time, and focusing on between-person type of comparison. So I'm sort of preaching to the choir here. Majority of you are familiar with the ecological momentary assessment or the experience sampling method, where we're asking participants to provide multiple daily reports and pair that with the wearable tracker data so that we can sort of continuously gather data related to their technology use as well as their stress experience. So in our actual sort of study, what we're trying to do is pairing the survey data, which we tap participants 4 times a day, and also the wearable tracker information. In this case, it's really the heart rate data that we're interested in. And so all of this sort of culminated to our a discussion within the research team, which is essentially, is our very research sort of protocol and strategy of recruiting participants actually imposing additional stress on our participants because we're studying technostress. And so that led to our sort of follow-up study, which is addressing those 2 specific research goals, is to try to understand from the participant's perspective, and given the fact that we're focusing on older workers, do they experience any sort of facilitators or barriers when it comes to their participation experience, and can they sort of provide some recommendations or strategies that, that can help us when it comes to taking on another study or with larger sample, how to manage their experience. So like I said, our sort of primary or substantive study is really focused on technostress, which is the second bullet point, where we have 4 daily reports asking participants to report their stress level, their mood, and so on. We ask them to wear a tracker, which is a Fitbit, to capture their heart rate information. We also ask them to provide some additional saliva sample, so 6 saliva samples, 3 on 2 particular days, 1 on weekday, 1 on weekend, to capture the cortisol level. And so that's the primary study, and we had 37. This is a convenient sample because this is really a pilot study. And then we recruited 18 out of those 37 participants to participate in the second part of the study, which is the focus group, to try to gather their experience. So what I'm going to present subsequently is really the focus group data when it comes to them sharing their experience. So overall, we achieve really amazing compliance rate from our participants. Lots and lots of them provide lots of data, and a lot of them sort of really follow through when it comes to wearing their trackers, completing the 4 daily assessments, and over the course of a week, 7 to 8 days, depending on when they signed up and when they returned their equipment. And almost all of them provided adequate saliva sample for us to analyze the cortisol, so which is amazing. We're very grateful. But in looking at the qualitative experience sharing, they sort of provide a slightly different story. They have, there are some positive experiences. They like the feedback that they receive from the app, but they also reported some sort of discomfort associated with wearing the Fitbit, as well as difficulties remembering to put it back on. And similarly, when it comes to the surveys, they certainly appreciate the reminders or the pin from the app for them to complete the survey, but they also found the very nature of having a window, an hour-long window to complete the survey for the EMA, very stressful, because sometimes they are in meetings, sometimes they are just unable to get to it. That becomes stressful. And in the process of sort of making the survey items a little bit more condensed and so that it's less onerous on the participants, we shorten some of the surveys and make them, to streamline the question. And participants actually did not like that. They found it confusing. They did not know how to respond to the question, which made us sort of realize, oh, maybe we need to go back to the wording to make it clear. And in terms of the strategies to promote participation, I think our participants really highlighted the importance of that communication strategy and multiple forms of reminders, so not just a technology-based reminder like a text or email or pop-up message, but also actually hard copy reminders that they're able to go back to. They like different formats. They like being able to have everything in their that's accessible to them. They also appreciate sort of the clear communication when it comes to data policy, privacy concerns, addressing their questions about confidentiality, how their data will be used, and so on. And what are we actually capturing when it comes to sort of the tracking app on their phone? They're very much interested in knowing what kind of data, how it's going to be stored, and so on. So in conclusion, I think our focus group data is perhaps sort of the success story, right? It is certainly the people who signed up for the study, successfully completed the study. So definitely the results are biased towards more positive end of the reports. But it does point to, at least reminded us about how we need to make sure that we're clearly communicating with our participants, making their experience as positive as possible, so that we can sort of keep them in this, recruit them into the study, keep them throughout the study, and then potentially tap them back, for a future follow-up. So that's all I have. Thank you.